Hello everyone and welcome to LewisFiction, and welcome to What If the MCU Had Opposite Characters to begin with. Before we get into this video, if you are new around here, make sure you subscribe for more Marvel, DC and Spider-Man content, and with that said, let's get straight into this. So what if the Marvel Cinematic Universe started with the opposite characters instead of the Avengers, the Guardians of the Galaxy, Black Panther and a few others? In this video, we're going to be exploring a thought experiment of an alternate timeline where the MCU had the rights to the likes of the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Ghost Rider and a few more instead of the Avengers. What would the MCU look like and how would the phases be shaped out? Well, let's explore that idea. I think it's entirely obvious that instead of Iron Man kicking off the MCU, with the popularity of the character, Spider-Man would be the first film in this alternate timeline. Spider-Man has the most potential for growth throughout the universe, so I imagine Marvel and Kevin Feige would kick off the universe with an origin story tackling the death of Uncle Ben, the Spider Bite, and the transformation of Norman Osborn to the Green Goblin. It probably would have turned out very similar to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man in all honesty, except I believe Peter would have stayed in high school for a few more films. The next film in this new MCU, I believe, would have probably been Wolverine. Now, Wolverine, who arguably is Marvel's second most popular character before the boom of the MCU, would have definitely got a shot at a solo film during this time. The film would have probably been very similar to X-Men Origins Wolverine, except it probably would have been executed 10 times better. Similar to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, this Wolverine film probably would have seen a few things that we've actually seen on the big screen before, but like I mentioned, probably executed 10 times better. The third film in this new timeline would of course be Spider-Man 2. Similar to how Iron Man received 2 films in phase 1, I imagine Spider-Man would be an immediate success and Spider-Man 2 would have gone straight into production. Not to mention, Spider-Man was already a popular character before the first Spider-Man film, unlike Iron Man, so it just makes sense that Spider-Man 2 probably would come out straight after. This time, the villain of the film would probably be Doc Ock, similar to Sam Raimi's film, due to the popularity of the villain. Dr. Connors would also be built up during the film to be set up for the villain of the next Spider-Man movie. The next film in this new timeline would be titled The X-Men. However, this X-Men film would be very similar to X-Men First Class, exploring the X-Men in their earlier days before Wolverine joined the team. This would establish Professor X and a bunch of the other characters in the X-Men that would eventually be developed and pushed on further down the line. This then leads us up to the major film event that unites all of the heroes in this new universe, which will be called X-Men Earth in Darkness. It will follow and it will adapt the story of Magneto generating a massive EMP, shutting down Earth's technology and power. The world will go into panic, which will unite the X-Men and Spider-Man. This story will also follow Wolverine's inclusion into the X-Men as well, as he is integrated into the team. The film obviously ends with Magneto being defeated and the world returning to normal. The name X-Men, I imagine, would become renowned as a franchise from this point on, the same way that the Avengers did in the real-life MCU. And if you guys aren't really too sure what I mean by this, essentially the Avengers ended up becoming a household name for glorified team-ups and crossovers within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Whereas in the comic books, the Avengers are a concentrated group of superheroes made up of maybe 6 or 7 members at the most. However, this has never really been the case in the MCU, apart from the first few films. Avengers Infinity War is a prime example of a film that is only really 50% about the Avengers, with half of the roster in the film making up non-Avengers characters. But since the Avengers name was so popular because it was used for a successful film at the time, all of their films from now on, of course, are going to be titled Avengers. And in this alternate timeline, I imagine this would be the case for the X-Men name instead, creating that association with that team of superheroes. This then leads us on to phase 2 of this imaginary timeline, where we kick it off with a brand new frontier, the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four film will be a direct consequence of X-Men Earth in Darkness. We follow Reed Richards prior to the events of Earth in Darkness, who has built a rocket that can reach interstellar planets. He plans to finally use it, and his team consists of himself, Sue Storm, Reed's colleague who turned love interest, Johnny Storm, Sue's brother, and Ben Grimm, who is Reed's former college roommate. They leave the Earth successfully for their mission. During their time away, the events of X-Men Earth in Darkness occur, leaving satellite signals down. Because of this, Reed and the crew get stuck in space not knowing how to get home, as their ship can't pick up Earth signals. Reed decides to find his own way back, afraid that they'll run out of oxygen if they don't do something. However, he leads them through a cosmic ray field, and the rest is history. Earth eventually receives all its power, and they return home. The rest of the film will tackle the consequence of Reed's actions, and how as a team they start falling apart, until the very end when they realise that they have to work together to save the day. And of course, the film will end by teasing this phase's overall big bad, which will be Doctor Doom. The next film of Phase 2 will be a crossover between the most two popular characters for this version of the MCU thus far, Peter Parker and Logan. Simply titled Spider-Man and Wolverine, this film will follow Peter and Logan switching bodies, adapting the ultimate comic story. As much as this film will be a comedy, it will also explore themes of understanding and sympathy, especially from Logan's side. Peter always had a banterous relationship with Logan until he realizes how poor life can get for him when he's thrown into dire situations. The same goes for Logan in Peter's body as he discovers how poor he is and how his aunt and everyone around him suffers because he's Spider-Man. Logan eventually realizes the great sacrifice that Peter has to go through, and Peter will learn the same. The villain of this film will be Dr. Connors, aka the Lizard, which was set up during Phase 1. Peter and Logan have to coordinate to beat the Lizard, with Peter knowing more about Dr. Connors, but accessing Logan's body. The next film in Phase 2 will be simply titled Doom. This story will follow up from the ending of the Fantastic Four, showcasing Doom's rich history. The film will adapt the Doctor Doom origin comic, where his mother becomes obsessed with enriching herself with power, and ends up selling her soul to Mephisto. Victor Von Doom would go on to lose his father before becoming enrolled in the same college as a younger Reed Richards, because of his high intelligence. Reed and Victor have an intense rivalry, and it's clear that they don't get along. Victor is still obsessed with getting his mother back, and creates a machine that uses science and magic to travel between dimensions to find Mephisto. Mephisto eventually tells him that he's never to return, and he turns his mother to stone. Victor is expelled from the dimension, but wakes up in a hospital with scarring on his face. It is later revealed that the machine exploded during him using it, which is how he ended up with all the scars. The film ends with Victor finding peace in training with monks, but still lusting for the love that he lost from his mother. Victor's downfall will be thinking that power would fill that hole, so becomes obsessed with wanting to rule the world, now known not as Victor Von Doom, but Dr. Doom. The next film will be Namor the Submariner. This film will follow Namor and his people in Atlantis. I imagine this film will be full of world building for the universe. Namor in this version of the MCU will act more like how Black Panther did in the actual MCU. It is revealed that Atlantis has the largest deposit of adamantium on Earth, and none other than Dr. Doom acquires this information. We also have to remember that this can only be adamantium, as during this thought experiment, Marvel currently does not have the rights to use vibranium. This film will also adapt the comic Doom War, where Dr. Doom goes to raid Wakanda of all of their vibranium, except Wakanda is substituted with Atlantis, and vibranium is substituted with adamantium. Atlantis is defeated, and Doom is successful. Now that he is the most powerful being on the planet, nothing can stop him. And that leads us to the massive team-up film of Phase 2, which is called X-Men Doom on Earth. The X-Men title once again will headline the major crossover event for the universe, where Doctor Doom will be the main villain. Doom becomes a threat, forcing the X-Men, Spider-Man and Namor and the Fantastic Four all to team up to take him on. At this point in the universe, the X-Men are the main protectors of Earth, which are why they are the first ones to get involved. However, once Reed learns that it's Victor Von Doom under the mask, the Fantastic Four will become main players throughout the film as well. The final battle will take place in Latveria in Doom's fortress. During the battle, one of Doom's science experiments escapes and attaches onto Spider-Man, giving him a black gooey suit. Of course, Secret Wars is how Peter actually gets the black suit, but since Secret Wars isn't possible due to character limitations, this will be that spin on that story. The film will also adapt parts of the comic Fantastic Four 1, 2, 3, 4, where Doom tries to manipulate members of the Four to try and side against Reed Richards. This will add a very emotional strain to the film, and will add to the ever-growing conflicting relationship between Victor Von Doom and Reed Richards. The film will end with Doom finally being defeated, bringing an end to that saga. Entering into Phase 3, the aftermath of Doom on Earth can be felt globally. The next film will be called The Runaways, and will follow a group of mutants who are excluded from society. The film will primarily focus on Nico Manuro. I could imagine this film almost being in the place of Captain America Civil War, as the film will tackle a harsh political landscape left in the wake of a second massive disaster event which involved superheroes. The X-Men, which are the major team protecting the Earth and are well known globally, will be under a lot of scrutiny and criticism. The second film will officially be Spider-Man 3. The third Spider-Man film will also play off the idea that the general public are more cautious about superheroes, starting to question their morality. This ties into the story about Peter having the black suit and how it turns him into a jerk, not just in the eyes of the city, but the people around him as well, including Aunt May, Mary Jane, and other supporting characters. The villain, of course, will be Eddie Brock, as he becomes Venom during the end of the film, as Spider-Man faces off against him. Eddie is then transferred to a prison in San Francisco. The next film, which will also be a film about feeling the ramifications of the last crossover, will be Fantastic Four 2. This film will adapt the famous story A Birth in a Family, a storyline which sees Sue pregnant. However, Reed and the rest of the team have to race against time as they are then trapped in the negative zone. Little do they know they will come across a nihilist who is the main villain of the film, who they have to face off against. Reed and the gang just about make it back in time to see the birth of their child. Similar to The Runaways, this next film in Phase 3 will tackle the idea of how the X-Men are maybe not the saviors that they once were in the eyes of the public. Of course, this film will be Old Man Logan. Similar to the Logan film we got from Fox in 2017, this film will also take heavy notes from the comic as well, where Logan is on the run from some mercenaries. Logan has taken a step back from the X-Men since Doom on Earth, and will be trying to live out his life separate from the rest of superhero society. This film will also explore more of the ethical dilemmas the X-Men face after the major events which caused much destruction and famine. This film will be as much an X-Men movie as a Wolverine one, featuring all of the characters. However, the film will be seen through Logan's eyes, as he is mostly affected by it. This next film in Phase 3 takes us to a different corner of the Marvel Universe, as we explore Ghost Rider. Now, Ghost Rider will have a very important role in the universe, as his film will be exploring his origin and will also tackle his rivalry with Mephisto. This means the film will act as a loose sequel to the Doctor Doom solo film as well, expanding that corner of the universe. Exploring more personal stories during this time in Phase 3, we will also have a chance to explore some further X-Men characters like Storm. Storm will receive a solo film adapting a character arc from the Uncanny X-Men comic books where she faced off against the Morlocks. Storm is such an underrated character, and this film will be spent exploring her relationship with the X-Men and pushing her moral and ethical boundaries to the limit. However, it's not until this next film until we reveal what the main crossover event for Phase 3 will be. This next film in Phase 3 will be Venom. This Venom film at its heart will focus on Eddie Brock's redemption during his time in prison in San Francisco. However, he will also meet someone known as Cletus Cassidy, and after the Venom symbiote reproduces and relocates Eddie, Cletus will become Carnage. Carnage will be rampant, and Eddie's new sense of heroism will thrust him into San Fran's savior from the reign of Carnage. However, this will also be a precursor to something bigger. This film will also hint at the fact that the symbiote, which was found in Doom's lab, wasn't actually a creation of Doom at all, but rather an alien that was found and experimented on by Doom himself. It's revealed that the symbiote came from another world, which we learn has an overworld ruler called Null. That then leads us to the big crossover event of Phase 3, which will be a two-parter titled X-Men Reign on Earth and X-Men King in Black. Null and the symbiotes create reign over New York, forcing all the major players, this time involving Ghost Rider and the Runaways, to all help save the planet. Spider-Man will also be a main character in this film, since the symbiotes are primarily his villains. Because Null is the major big bad in Phase 3, that means that this universe's key players all had a villain sprouted from their mythos as the big crossover villain. Phase 1 was Magneto from the X-Men, Phase 2 was Doctor Doom from the F4, and Phase 3 was Null and the symbiote invasion from Spider-Man. The X-Men, F4 and the rest of the heroes team up, but it isn't enough, and they lose, paralleling Avengers Infinity War. The second part allows the team to regroup and hatch a plan after losing some of the heroes to the symbiote. The only players left include Spider-Man, Logan, Sue, Johnny, Ben, and most of the X-Men. Their main goal is to get Reed back from the clutches of the symbiotes, as his intelligence is the key to defeating them. They eventually save Reed from the clutches of the symbiotes, allowing him to work his magic and finally save the day. In Reed's absence, it also allows us to adapt the story where Spider-Man ends up becoming a part of the F4 as well, temporarily taking Reed's place. But apart from that, that rounds out Phase 3. And rounds out what I'd like to call the mutant saga for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in this what-if scenario where the MCU had all of its opposite characters. I won't go any further in fears of dragging this video out, but I do have a few ideas for what could be beyond Phase 3. I imagine the next big bad would be Galactus of some variety. I also imagine the X-Men would receive a new team and an overhaul. Wolverine would probably retire, bringing X-23 to the main stage. The F4 would then likely become the spearheads of the universe as well. I also imagine they'd introduce Deadpool at some point down the line. On the Spider-Man side of things, Peter would go to college, and there probably would be a story at some point tackling Morbius the Living Vampire, with the opportunity to then have a crossover story with Blade, who would also be under Marvel's control. Apart from that, that's everything I have for you today. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. Hit the post notification bell so you do not miss another video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care, and in peace.